So here is another problem, and Ali has heard of this. فَتَهَيَّأَ لِلْخُرُوجِ. He is the Amir, and he doesn't think it's appropriate for somebody else to be engaging in this kind of police action. فَتَهَيَّأَ لِلْخُرُوجِ. So he gets his army together. قال أمضوا إلى هؤلاء الذين يريدون تفرقة جماعتكم. Go and confront those who are trying to divide your community. لعل الله يصلح بكم ذات بينكم. And he says the same thing that Aisha is saying. It may be that through you Allah will bring about reconciliation. And his son Al-Hassan brings an army from Basra. Ali comes from Medina, and they meet near Basra, and the battle of Al-Jalja takes place. And the calamity of this battle is that Az-Zubayr is killed by an individual called Ibn Jarmuz. Now, Ali cites a hadith indicating that the killer of Az-Zubayr will be under a curse. So Ibn Jarmuz, who's perplexed by this kind of internecine dispute, says, if we fight with you, we are in hell. If we fight against you, we are in hell. ثُمَّ بَعَجَ بَطْنَهُ بِسَيْفِهِ فَقَتَلَ نَفْسَهُ. And then he stabbed himself and killed himself. This is the kind of trauma that's now taking place. But of course there's no possibility of vengeance. Ali sends Aisha radiallahu anha mukarramatan, in a noble way, back to Medina, and he sends some women of Iraq with her. So that's the battle of the camel. And then the issue of Muawia. He is the governor of Syria, and he again is a companion. And there's hadiths, several hadiths in the Musnad of Ahmad bin Hanbal, in which the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam makes dua for him. Allahumma allimhu al-kitaba wal-hisaba waqihi su' al-adhab, for instance. One of the prayers for Muawiyah. Oh Allah, teach him the book and calculation, and protect him from the evil of your punishment. Muawiyah's concern also is to speed up the investigation into the killing of the third Khalifa. And there's some interesting incidents here which demonstrate that it really wasn't in Muawiyah's mind that he wanted to replace Ali as Khalifa. If you look at the earliest historians, they weren't presenting that at all. So one of the great ones of the Tabi'een, Abu Muslim al-Khawlani, who is travelling between the two camps at this time, is reported as follows. Abu Muslim al-Khawlani entered upon Muawiyah and asked, Anta tunazi'u aliyan am anta mithlu? Are you going to dispute with Ali? Are you his equal? قال لا. He said, certainly not. إني لأعلم أنه أفضل مني. I know that Ali is better than me. وأحق بالأمر مني. And has more right to authority than I. ولكن ألستم تعلمون أن عثمان قتل مظلوما وأني ابن عمه. But don't you know that Uthman was killed unjustly, and that I am his cousin? So go to him and ask him to find and hand over the killers. And then the militia of Muawiyah and Ali's army meet at Siffin between Iraq, Syria. There are indecisive skirmishes, and then Muawiyah proposes the arbitration to prevent further bloodshed, and all agree. And this is the beginning of the Kharijite episode, which is another of the headaches that Sayyidina Ali has to confront. 12,000 of Ali's armies say it's not right for him to accept Muawiyah's suggestion that this should be dealt with by arbitration. This is to do with Allah's religion, and you can't bring in human arbiters to decide something that is Allah. So these 12,000, mostly Central Arabians, march out to a place called Harura. Sometimes the Khawarij are called Haruriya. And they appoint as their first leader Abdullah bin Wahab al-Rasibi. Ali goes out to reason with them. Some of them come back. But the Kharijites were the kind of first real extremists of Islam, absolutists, literalists. Can't stand Muawiyah and can't stand Ali because of this idea that there should be peaceful resolution to arbitration. They just want to fight it out. And this eventually leads to Ali's tragic downfall. This is the story of Ibn Muljam. Ibn Muljam is a man in Kufa and is in love with a Kharijite woman called Qutam, who all of the historians describe as one of those most beautiful women of her age. He proposes marriage to her, but she says, لا أتزوج بك إلا على 3,000 وعبد وقينة وقتل علي ibn Abi Talib. I will only marry you in exchange for these things. Firstly, I want 3,000 silver coins. I want a male and a female slave, and I want you to kill Ali ibn Abi Talib. She's a Kharijiyah. She's one of these extremist assassins. So, in order to win her, he poisons his sword and enters the mosque of Kufa. Ali at that time is calling the people to the prayer, and Ibn Muljam steals up behind him and brings the sword down on him with an enormous blow. He drops his sword, people grab him, and Ali is taken back to his house. He dies shortly afterwards, and Ibn Muljam is sentenced and executed. And that's the end of the mortal life of Imam Ali ibn Abi Talib. And alhamdulillah, he's not killed by anybody from a reputable group or sect of the Muslims. He's killed by one of these wild Kharijite, as it were, Al-Qaeda type assassins, absolutists, a kind of suicide bombing mission. It has nothing to do with any of the mainstream Muslims. None of the Sahaba or the Tabi'een are in favour of this, but still it's a traumatic event and a catastrophe. But still, Islam, the mill of Islam, goes round and round and continues, and things do not fall apart, despite the fact that, perhaps inevitably, when you consider the enormous ambition of the project of early Islam, the creation of a new civilization almost overnight, the emergence of a new and pure monotheism, very different to what people had known before, the emergence of a new economic system, the emergence of a social model that wasn't really based on hierarchy and aristocracy, the birth really of a new spiritual type, with variations, and each of the four Khalifat represent variations on that spiritual type. The size of the empire, what's being done is gigantically ambitious, and in a sense it's kind of inevitable that there will be tensions, and it's miraculous that the tensions were no greater than they actually were, because ultimately the Ummah did hold together, alhamdulillah. But there's something tragic about this, and something about the whole spiritual fragrance of Imam Ali that is helpful in reminding us that things in this world often don't work the way that we'd like them to. People don't always live happily ever after. Sometimes there is tragedy, people die, relationships don't work. This is the nature of dunya, and the later Khulafa did discover this, and hence in our literature and in our culture generally we have this way of venerating and revering Imam Ali as somebody who has these particular spiritual qualities. He's the disinterested, heroic warrior. He is the inward initiate, the one who the Holy Prophet has put his hand on his head and given him this extraordinary blessing. He is the ancestor of the Ahlul Bayt. He has all of these particular qualities, and he's had this close, intimate relationship with the three earlier Khulafa, a person of extraordinary fineness, but there's this tragic dimension as well. And that's actually useful for us to recall. Simple triumphalism and the assumption that things generally work out the way we'd like them to doesn't help us very much spiritually. Our lives are full of setbacks, and early Islam also, despite the triumphs, also new setbacks, and that's just part of the way the world exists. So in our literature, and some of the songs about Imam Ali, some of the most beautiful ones are in the West African languages, Mandingo and Wolof in particular. The songs about the death of Imam Ali, some of the Sumatran, the Achenese traditions as well, particularly beautiful, the Uzbek, Chagatai Turkish epics of Ali Shir Nevahi and others. These are very, very moving ways of softening the heart. You consider the nobility of the man, the flawlessness of the man, and the difficulty of his situation and his tragic end. And there's something in this which is good for us, which corresponds to our own experience, that things often don't work out, that there are tragedies and misfortunes in our life, that dunya basically is a vale of tears. So, a few examples. One of my favourites is Ziya Pasha, who was quite recent really, one of the great Turkish poets of the 19th century, somebody who is interested in the Hanafi madhab and in Deen things, but he's also a journalist. He runs the Hurriyet newspaper, which is still going in Turkey, but at the time was edited out of London. He was based in this country. So he writes the great Tarji'a Band, which is an Ottoman Turkish poem, which is about misfortunes. We have a genre in our literature which is about ibtila, misfortunes, musiba. Perhaps the best known example is Attar, Fariduddin Attar, and his great Musibat Name. This is a translation of some lines from the Tarji'a Band of Ziya Pasha. The spiritual objective being to melt our hearts with a reminder of the ham, the misfortunes, the concerns that exist in dunya. The father of mankind was sent out of Eden's garden. Ibrahim was tested with a knife to the neck of his son. Yaqub wept in lament at the loss of Yusuf the fair, while Yusuf himself languished in the well abandoned. Pains and sorrows caused Ayub to groan. Yahya lost his head to the tyrant's sword. Isa the fatherless endured much pain and woe. At Ta'if was the prophet stoned, and then his pearl-like teeth were broken on Uhud's field. Out of hunger he bound a flat stone to his pure waist. Little was his care for worldly comfort. Abu Bakr the true left this world through poison's cup, and by the sword of doom was martyred Omar slain. Martyrdom came also to he who ordered the Qur'an. The blessed Haidar too sank down before the blade profane. And Hassan poisoned went on to paradise above. Foully murdered was Hussein, king of the martyr train. Whoever's heart is ruled by love of God alone, in him shall pain and anguish ever come. Which is a rather somber mood to strike, but it does correspond to the reality of life. We suffer bereavement, our parents die, people become sick, we don't get the job that we want, relationships may not work, we become ill. Dunya contains setback after setback after setback, and moments of happiness as well. And there's a spiritual wisdom, it seems to me, in the way in which the story of the first four Khalifas ends with this renge, this pain, this sorrow, because in a sense there is no permanent triumph in dunya. Wherever there is success, it's followed by difficulty. Wherever there is bust, it's followed by qabd. And this is just the way that things are. And there's a certain humbleness that we gain from that probably wouldn't have gained if the story of the Khulafa from the Adot to the present day had just been one long story of success and no disputation. A few other things we need to ponder before we finish, which are of contemporary relevance, which is the balance that he strikes, radiallahu an, between extremes. He's killed by an extremist, he's killed by a Kharijite. There are people who are fanatically hostile to him because of his determination to avoid bloodshed by agreeing to the tahkim, the arbitration. But there's also people who are fanatically on his side and won't brook anything else. Some people who are so mad with love for Imam Ali that they consider him to be divine, and that has popped up again and again in our history. Now, one of the great books which are about him and purport to be by him is the Nahj al-Balagha, which is one of the masterpieces of Arabic literature. How much of it actually represents authentically his own khutbahs and his own statements is not clear, but certainly there's a lot of his fragrance about it. But he says something very interesting in the Nahj al-Balagha, in one of his sermons. With regard to me, two groups of people shall be destroyed, namely, he who loves me to excess, so that love takes him away from what is correct, and he who hates me so much that the hatred also takes him away from the truth. The best person with regard to me is he who follows the middle course. So be with him, and be with the great majority of Muslims, because Allah's hand of protection is with the maintenance of unity. You should beware of division, because the one isolated from the group is a prey to shaitan, just as the one isolated from the flock of sheep is a prey to the wolf. Beware, Whoever calls to the course of sectarianism, fight him, even though he may be under this banner of mine. So here, in this great classic, the Nahj al-Balaghi is specifically saying, be with the great majority of Muslims. And that's how he was constantly. Because it's all about Islah Dhat al-Bayn. Every one of these painful decisions that he had to take, these tragedies that he was confronting, of the difference of opinion amongst the passionate sense of rightness amongst the Sahaba, every one of them was a decision taken in order to unite the Muslims. And when he accepted the Khilafah, he only accepted it when it was clear that it was the consensus, the majority of the Muslims that wanted it. Not some particular caste or class or particular group amongst them, but the generality of the Muslims. And this is one of the things that he stands for, as a man of equality. He was a man of tremendous fairness. And his sword really is about establishing fairness amongst humanity, absolute equality amongst human beings. So we have this position, and the Sunni position, of course, has always been to accept his determination to think well of everybody. Adam al-Khawd fima shajara bayna as-sahaba. We do not get involved in the disputations that happened amongst the Sahaba. We follow the way of Imam Ali and have a positive opinion of everybody. His respect for Aisha, his respect for all of the Sahaba is what we should be following. And that's one of the most important things that we should be learning. There's an amazing dream of one of the very early hadith scholars, Amr ibn Shurahbil, which always makes me think. This is what he wrote down after he saw the dream. رَأَيْتُ كَأَنَّنِي دَخَلْتُ الْجَنَّةِ. I saw it was as though I had entered paradise. فَرَأَيْتُ قِبَابًا مَضْرُوبًا. And I saw domes or tents that had been set up. فَقُلْتُ لِمَنْ هَذِهِ الْقِبَابِ. And I said, who are these tents for? فَقَالُوا لِذِي الْكِلَاعِ وَحَوْشَبْ وَكَانَ مِمَّنْ قَاتَلَ مَعَ مُعَاوِيَةَ. And it was said to me, they are for Dhul Kila' and Hawshab. And they were two of the people who had fought and killed on the side of Muawia. فَقُلْتُ فَأَيْنَ عَمَّارُ وَأَصْحَابُهُ. And I said, so where are Ammar and his companions? Ammar bin Yasir, one of the great Sahabas, was killed in that battle fighting for the cause of Ali. قَالُوا أَمَامَكَ. And they said, there, in front of you. قُلْتُ وَقَدْ قَتَلَ بَعْضُهُمْ بَعْضًا. And I said, they were fighting amongst themselves. قِيلَ إِنَّهُمْ لَقُوا اللَّهَ وَوَجَدُوهُ وَاسِعَ الْمَغْفِرَةِ. And it was said, when they met Allah, they found that He was of broad and great mercy. قُلْتُ فَمَا فَعَلَ أَهْلُ النَّهَرِ قِيلَ لَقُوا بَرْحًا. And then I said, what about the people of the river? That's the Kharijites, the extremists, the narrow-minded literalists, the people who assassinated Ali. And it was said, they found the fire of hell. And that really sums up the position of the scholars of Islam, that we draw a veil over what might seem sometimes to us to be strange about intentions that seem to be conflicting with each other, and that we say, kulluhum udul, all of them were upright witnesses. And there's a tremendous spiritual wisdom in this. And this is why we find that the way of Imam Ali, karramallahu wajha, becomes the way of futuwa, not just for his own age, but subsequently, and the great spiritual ways of Islam flow from him. All of the tariqas of Islam, with the exception of the Naqshbandiyya, go from Ali ibn Abi Talib. Why should that be? Well, even the Naqshbandiyya, their silsila includes Ja'far al-Sadiq, and they also have the kind of alid fragrance about them. So why is that? That requires indications. Why is it that the way followed by Imam al-Ghazali and all of the great ones, Imam al-Junaid, the great saints of Islam, the spiritual fragrance comes from Imam Ali? Well, the reason is that the practice which he shows in his life, which is to draw a veil over people's misunderstandings and to work for the reconciliation and always to follow the majority of the Muslims, is the basis for true spirituality. We have two options when we see things that we don't understand happening between people. Either we can allocate blame, and we can say, he killed him and he's on his side, and feel superior, and the nafs loves that. Or we can say, Allahu A'lam, Allah is forgiving, and all of them were following a niyyah which we presume to be good. There's that second option, which becomes the option of the great ulama of Islam, which is necessary for any sound spirituality. You can't base a spiritual life on suspiciousness and cursing and allocating blame. It's impossible. The first rule of spirituality is to give other people the benefit of the doubt and to blame yourself. And that's what that two-pointed sword represents. It means if you're going to try and establish uprightness in the world, make sure that you've established it in yourself. This is one of the great lessons that we learn from the four khulafa. The necessity of the jama'ah. Yadullahi ma'al jama'ah. Wa man shadda shadda fin nar. Allah's hand is over the jama'ah, the congregation, the greater number, as-sawad al-a'zam. And whoever goes on his own, in a small group, goes into hellfire. You cannot operate a successful spirituality unless you have this principle of giving people the benefit of the doubt and forgiving and including. The moment you start to point the finger of blame and to allocate blame, then the gates of Allah's rahmah are closed to you because of the state that you're in. So that's a very important lesson for us to learn. And Imam Ali, karramallahu wajha, is a great example of that. A few things just to close. We've spoken of the spiritual merit of Imam Ali. Let's just recall a few things. Ammar bin Yasir, who we've been speaking about, radiyallahu anhu, قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول, I once heard Allah's Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم saying, Ya Ali, O Ali, إن الله تعالى قد زينك بزينة لم يزين العباد بزينة أحب إلى الله تعالى منها. Allah, exalted is He, has adorned you with an adornment which He has never adorned any of His servants with any adornment more beloved to Him than it. يَزِينَةُ الْأَبْرَارِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ, which is the adornment of the saints, the good ones in the sight of Allah. What is it? الزُّهْدُ فِي الدُّنْيَا, doing without the things of this world. فَجَعَلَكَ لَا تَزْرَأُ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا شَيْئًا, and He made you somebody who is not relying on anything in the world. وَلَا تَزْرَأُ الدُّنْيَا مِنْكَ شَيْئًا, and the world does not have any dependence upon you. وَوَهَبَ لَكَ حُبَّ الْمَسَاكِينَ, and He bestowed upon you the gift of love for the poor. فَجَعَلَكَ تَرْضَى بِهِمْ أَتْبَاعًا, and He made you to be happy that they are your followers. وَيَرْضَوْنَ بِكَ إِمَامًا, and that they are happy to have you as their Imam. And this is the important principle of wilaya. The idea of political authority in Islam is to do with ideas such as imara, or imama, or khilafa. The early Muslims, when speaking of government, would say amruna, our affair, our command. Wilaya is a term that is sometimes used in connection not so much with political authority, although it can be, but that's the less obvious implication. But wilaya means inward authority. It means closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Man tawalat af'aluhu ala al-muwafaqa. Whoever's actions follow one another in conformity to the sunnah. That is the wali. And in the famous hadith al-Nawafil, which is the most famous hadith of Islam, Man aada li waliyan faqad adhantuhu bil harb. Whoever harms a wali, a friend, a saint of mine, I declare war on him. Then it goes on to explain what that is. It's somebody who progresses to obligatory acts, through voluntary acts, until they reach the state of love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in the prophetic vocabulary, wilaya, or being wali, is to do with this inward closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we find a number of important hadiths, very important hadiths, which explain the whole subsequent spiritual landscape of the religion, in which this particular type of wilaya is associated with Sayyidina Ali. Of course, wilaya, sainthood, is the way of the Sahaba generally. But the hadith of Ghadir Khum, for instance, is very important, regularly cited by the ulama in this context. It's a sound hadith. that the Holy Prophet takes his hand, radiallahu an, and says, Man kuntu mawlahu fa aliyun mawla. Whoever has me as his mawla, then Ali is his mawla. Mawla is related to wali. In other words, it's to do with spiritual excellence. It's to do with the authority of a spiritual guide. And this is, if we're looking at the particular fragrance or signature tune, as it were, of each of the great Khulafa, this is what Imam Ali has bequeathed, this kind of inward knowledge and this inward wisdom. Is the city of knowledge. And this is not to say in some superficial way that, again, we can easily, although many of the ulama have attempted to do this, rank them in fadl. My teachers are always skeptical of that. There are certain formulaic ways in which one can arrange them in descending order of merit from Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, and given the prophetic teachings you can see how that works. But essentially what we're looking at in the case of each of them is a particular type of greatness, and each one is so great that it's hard really to compare them. And this inward richness which has flowed out through the ulama of Sunni Islam down the centuries is something that comes specifically through the inward gate of the city of knowledge, which is the way of Imam Ali karramallahu wajhahu wa arda, and of course his fatwa is very important in the four canonical madhabs. And at this point, inshallah, we will have to end. One could speak about any of the four friends, the Jahariyar, indefinitely, but we've come to an end. But since we've mentioned Ali's role in fiqh and in the four madhabs, inshallah, in kana lana umr, if we have a long enough life and opportunity, the next lectures in this series, inshallah, it's our intention, will be about the four imams, having done the four khulafa. We'll do four, inshallah, about the four imams, beginning with the Imam Ahl al-Madinah, Malik bin Anas, radiyallahu an wa arda. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept our intentions and accept our determination to learn, and give us love for all of his awliya, and give us what he gave the early Muslims in terms of giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, a passion for the truth, a passion for justice, and also a longing that the Ummah of Islam should be one and should be united.